It's disgraceful.
It's going to be beautiful when it's done.
It's sacred ground. Came down here to try to look for myself. It's a desecration, really.
Hey everybody, this is Cynara. So, the big news right now. The East Wing of the White House is being demolished to make way for a brand new ballroom. The East Wing has always been a pretty iconic part of the White House. It's where visitors enter and where the First Lady's offices were. But now it's being torn down to build a large, modern ballroom that will reportedly cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Some reports say the project is privately funded, and supporters argue that this is a much-needed upgrade. They say the White House needs more space to host big state events and international gatherings, and that other presidents have made changes to the buildings before, so this isn't unusual. But on the other hand, not everyone's happy about it. Critics say this is a huge loss of history, that tearing down part of such a historic building erases an important piece of our national heritage. Others question the priorities behind it. Even if the money is privately raised, they argue that those funds could be used for other things like housing for the homeless, food for the needy, or improving public services. There are also concerns about transparency, that the project moved forward before a full public review and that private funding might be influencing decisions about what should be a public institution. So there are really two sides to this. Some see it as a modernization and progress, while others view it as unnecessary and disrespectful to history.
This just in, while you're out here juggling bills, working 2 or 3 jobs, figuring out which basic needs you can go without this month, the White House has decided it's the perfect time to build a ballroom, and not just any ballroom, a 90,000 square foot, 650 seat, $200 million monument to excess right in the heart of the people's house. Now they want you to believe this is no big deal because, and I quote, "Don't worry, it's privately funded." But here's the thing, money doesn't come from nowhere. Every dollar a billionaire or political donor spends on a gold-plated vanity project is a dollar they don't spend feeding hungry kids, housing the homeless, the veterans, or funding health care. Privately funded doesn't make it any less of a slap in the face. It just means they're using their wealth to build monuments to themselves instead of meeting the needs of the people. And the official reason? They don't like the unsightly tents that are being used for big events, folks. When children are going to bed hungry and seniors are cutting their prescriptions in half, unsightly tents are not the crisis. The real eyesore is a government so out of touch, it chooses luxury over life. Let's break this down, shall we? 90,000 square feet could provide safe housing for hundreds of families. $200 million could pay for millions of school lunches. That kind of money could fund clinics, rebuild storm-damaged towns, and get real help to veterans living on the street. Instead, we're getting a glittering room the size of 2 football fields so political elites can dine under crystal chandeliers. And don't forget, the same people behind this project are the ones who passed that big, beautiful bill, packed with cuts to programs real Americans rely on. They can cut you out of the budget, but they'll never cut their own luxuries. They'll dress it up as preserving history or honoring tradition, but history will not remember the pattern on the carpet. History will remember that in a time of struggle, they chose gold over groceries and opulence over ordinary people. So if you've ever been told there's no money for your health care, your school, or your community, remember this ballroom. Remember who had the money and what they chose to do with it, because this isn't just about a building. It's a billboard that says, "We don't care about you."
I read this on X earlier today. Teddy Roosevelt built the West Wing. Taft made the executive office oval. FDR added the entire East Wing and included an indoor pool for himself. Truman gutted the entire White House. Nixon added a bowling alley. Obama added a basketball court. And Trump is adding a ballroom. Why is this? Why are we having such a meltdown? What is it? I mean, like, where was the meltdown over the basketball court? Why did we have a meltdown when Truman gutted the White House? Like the whole thing? Each president adds something. No one's destroying the East Wing for it never to be rebuilt. He's in construction. He saw a need. He found a way to fund it. And now every president who ever lives there will have an additional space in which to hold events, Stu.
It's disgraceful.
It's going to be beautiful when it's done.
It's sacred ground. Came down here to try to look for myself. It's a desecration, really, I think. I don't know that anybody particularly wants a big ballroom, even for those people who did want it. The promise was that the White House wasn't going to be touched, and here we are.
I figured I'd walk down here and see what was going on. I was glad to see that the upgrade with the building. And it's so funny they're saying how Trump's destroying everything. Go back through history. All the different presidents. Truman gutted the place. Roosevelt made the West Wing. Nixon had his bowling alley. JFK had a swimming pool. So, he's adding his touch.
Renovations always have to be made. Yeah, I agree with that. But the timing of it, when so many people, myself included, I'm retired. I depend on Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and all that. And something like this, sending money to other countries, cutting aid. What happened to America first?
I just think that this is a mistake, and I don't think there's ever going to be something for nothing.
You got to build it for a president. So I think it's going to be a pretty good job.
You got so many people hurting, and you got time to dance and celebrate. So many people is hurting. That's kind of backwards.
You cannot help but wonder if President Donald Trump didn't wait until after this weekend's massive No Kings protests. You can't help but wonder if he didn't wait until these protests were already done before today he started literally physically tearing down the White House. This is not AI. That is a real thing. The No King's Day protests saw 7 million Americans turning out in the streets, coast to coast, protesting against him this weekend. Imagine how many millions more there might have been if we had seen these images on Friday instead of him starting to do this today. Trump literally today sent a rental backhoe to physically rip down the East Wing of the White House. Okay. He's already paved the Rose Garden. Literally, he paved it. That's the Rose Garden, except, oh no, it's a patio at a Panera in a strip mall. He paved the Rose Garden. He took up parts of the White House lawn to put up huge flagpoles so he could fly novelty-size American flags over the White House to make it look like it's an RV dealership that's going out of business. He hung cheap gold decorations all over the Oval Office, just random little gold gewgaws to make it look like a Hilton Hotel banquet room in 1992 before the renovation. He tried to give away Eisenhower's sword as like a hostess gift to a foreign head of state. The head of the Eisenhower Presidential Library resigned in protest and said he wouldn't do it. Right? So this is how the man is treating the legacy, the physical legacy of the presidency of the United States. So maybe we should have seen it coming, right? Especially after he promised everybody this summer that to build this new ballroom he wants for himself. He promised this summer overtly that the construction of the new ballroom wouldn't affect anything else at the White House. He said everything else would be left intact. It, quote, won't interfere with the current building. As soon as he said that, we should have imagined him rolling the backhoes up to the White House to start literally ripping it down, which is what happened today. We should have known, but still nothing can quite prepare you for the sight of him actually doing it. Absolutely amazing. Surprise! Donald Trump is literally destroying the people's house because apparently he thinks it's his house and not ours, and I'm guessing he has no intention of moving out of it ever.
By way of quick review, because I'm an amateur historian, you'll understand the White House has been renovated many times over the years. You understand? I mean, it was built between 1792 and 1800, right? The British burned it down practically in 1814, and then they rebuilt it in the early 1820s. And ever since, like, we've had many presidents renovate and add things to the White House. Teddy Roosevelt built the whole West Wing. Who was it? FDR, Taft, I think, added the Oval Office. FDR made additions. I mean, Truman put ripped everything up to put a bowling alley in. FDR had added the swimming pool, I think. Barack Obama added a basketball court. President Trump's going to add the greatest improvement to the White House in the history of the building since it was originally constructed in 1800. The ballroom is going to be glorious. It's going to be used for everybody. And by the way, hey, Democrats, if you win the White House back, you get to use it too. This is for the American people, and he's using private funds to do it. How in the world could they oppose that?
Well, the government is still shut down, but the $250 million renovation to the White House has still begun. A renovation that's not needed because something is falling apart. It's so there can be a new ballroom.
By now, you've heard about the $200 million ballroom, the golden ballroom that Trump's actually going to put at the White House to hold world leaders and stuff. Okay? There are so many creators on here. On the left is saying we can't afford this, we can't afford that. These tax dollars are being wasted on the $200 million plus ballroom for world leaders at the White House. But what they're not telling you is not tax dollars going towards this. It's Trump. Trump is actually putting up the money to build this ballroom, the Golden Ballroom, at the east side of the White House. Not to interfere with the White House aesthetics, but instead of them putting up tents like they do all the times they have world leaders come in, Trump is actually going to put the money up, $200 million, him and some other private investors. No tax dollars are being used for this project, which is good. If tax dollars was going to be used for this project, the $200 million would become $50 billion. You just know how the government is. So Trump, that's one thing Trump can do, is build. And build on time and within budget. When people are using private donations, there's hardly any overruns. So thank you, Trump, for putting out $200+ million to build this ballroom that's not going to actually cost the American taxpayers one penny, and that every president from this time forward actually gets the use of that ballroom from now until eternity. Only president in world history that did this put something like this at the White House for the entire presidencies and future to use to host world leaders. I hope they call it the Trump Ballroom. I really do. Trump's Golden Ballroom.
$200 million on a ballroom, huh? That's what they're going to spend on a ballroom on the White House. Caroline Leavitt gave a whole speech about this ballroom they're going to add because there's no space for events other than a tent, which is gaudy, God forbid. So they're going to build a ballroom. So my thinking when I heard this was, how are Trump supporters going to defend spending $200 million on a ballroom that nobody really needs? And of course they're defending it, because of course they are. Their defense is that it's coming from private donors. It's private funds. It's not taxpayer money. How about we use those private funds, those private donated $200 million to help people instead? What if we used it to, like, I don't know, fund cancer research, since they just cut that, or feed kids, or maybe we could house all those homeless vets conservatives always pretend to care about that they don't actually care about. Just a thought. Because it seems kind of crazy to me that a priority of this administration right now is a $200 million gaudy ballroom that none of us are ever going to see the inside of. But what do I know?
What do you think? Is the new ballroom a step forward, or should that money and effort be going towards more pressing issues? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.